Thank you. Before I start, I would like to bring your attention to a point. In Arabic language, we don't have the letter P as in Peter. So we pronounce it as B, as in boy. The very first time I realized there was a difference between P and B, once I was trying to find a parking spot in a very crowded parking lot. I looked at the security guy. I said, "Excuse me, sir, can I park here?" He said, "You can park, but you cannot bark." So please excuse me when I mix between park and bark. Dear friends, I can scarcely tell you how pleased I am to be speaking at such a highly needed conference, one devoted solely to women's issues. Coming to Washington, D.C. for this conference is double pleasure to me, since not only is it my first time to speak at such an event, but because sharing with you helps elevate a medical condition I acquired in the United States of America. Can you guess what it is? Even as a medical doctor, it took me years to sort out the symptoms of my new disease. I have survivor syndrome. You see, I was born and raised in a culture which deals with women very harshly. During my 32 years in Syria, I witnessed firsthand countless acts of violence and cruelty against women. While practicing as a physician, I saw and treated numerous abused women who were raped and severely beaten, all with the tacit approval of their families and the laws of Sharia. Although from a good family, which encouraged me to study, I myself faced internal and external restraints, which daily stifled my life and virtually imprisoned me. Then I was set free. From the first week I arrived in this country, I felt how privileged I was. I received the gift of dignity. I had human rights I had never experienced before. Can you believe that in spite of my doctorate, because I am a woman, in my own country, I wasn't considered mentally fit to be the guardian of my own children. Under Sharia law, the guardian of children must be male, the father, or, failing that, a male relative. My husband preceded us to America. How were my children and I to join him, since under Sharia law, I was refused passport for my children? My unfit mind devised a plan. In our town, there lived only one relative of my husband. My husband had never introduced us because he considered the relative morally unfit for my acquaintance. But relation, although both alcoholic and ill-natured, had the right credentials. He was a male. Thus, I bribed a drunken stranger with money equivalent to $1 to act as the guardian of my desperate family, a desperation created not by nature or disaster, but by Sharia law. What a relief to be released from such absurdity. Daily I lived free, and I enjoyed every minute of it. However, over time, I started to feel guilty. I remembered the women left behind, patients, friends, family, and acquaintances. Millions of women, not only in my country, but throughout the Muslim world, for whom liberty like mine was scarcely even imaginable. Over time, the guilt grew to paralyzing proportions. It consumed me mentally and emotionally. At the same time, I was delighted with every aspect of my new life in America. Little by little, guilt and freedom inspired me to fight back. I had to hope, and I had to act, first by writing, then by speaking out. I began to fight for those who have no voice, for those I left behind, under Sharia law. Others before me have tried to bring reforms to the Muslim world, but I was the first Muslim background person to proclaim on Arabic television that Islam itself is the problem. The road I have taken is dangerous, but I don't let fear control my life or distract me from reaching my goal. Please, don't think that I am here to incite anyone against Muslims. Muslims are my people. Even if I want to, I wouldn't be able to peel off my own skin and be anything but a woman from a Muslim country and Islamic culture. From my speaking engagements across America and in Europe, I have found that well-intentioned people in the West are woefully and at times willfully ignorant of not only the treatment of Muslim women, but the cause. They point out that women are mistreated in every culture, as if that explains everything. Their desperate hope that the mistreatment of women has nothing to do with Islam causes them to turn aside without learning the truth. But today, I am asking you to take a closer, serious look at the way women are treated under Sharia law. I am here to unmask the true face of Islam toward women. It is a hateful and intolerant ideology. To understand the situation of women under Islam, you must clearly see that the principles of Islam promote abusive practices. In other words, the abuse of women in Islam is legal. Is it not only legal, but comes from laws directly out of the Quran and teachings of Muhammad? I can understand reluctance to believe this could be true, and the disinclination to speak against such a world force as Islam. I face this reluctance myself. But can you imagine my frustration when people who have never lived under Islam nor its teachings deny the truth, the reality I know? Here, we are in this beautiful capital of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., to say that the principles of Islam have no relationship to the treatment of women under Islam would be as nonsensical as claiming that the Constitution of the United States has nothing to do with the way America's government runs. Every day, most people live in denial for the reality of uncomfortable things like death. I can't. I am a physician. I have seen death up close and personal, time after time. It is the same with Islam. I have read its teachings in the original Arabic and seen the results in the societies it shapes. I cannot go back to a fairyland view that Islam treats women fairly any more than I can deny that cancer eats flesh and kills its victims. In both the Sunni and the Shia branches of Islam, teachings against women are at this level. For example, both tell us that Muhammad said women are deficient in mind and religion. Now, you see the basis for why Wafa Sultan is not considered a reliable guardian for her own children. Can you believe that the level of the authority of this saying is equal to that of how many times a day Muslims must pray? This clear law from Muhammad hurts women, but now I am thankful for its clarity, because with it, we can clearly prove Islam is wrong. I could give you many similar examples, such as that. A woman is nothing, there is nothing more hateful to men than women. Women are of a crooked character, like the rib they were created from. Women are domestic animals, and they deserve to be beaten. I don't know why domestic animals, deserve to be beaten even. People ruled by a woman will never be successful. Time after time, I have seen how women have been indoctrinated to believe that even their abuse is fair and justified because it is what Allah wants. Lara Logan, the CBS journalist who covered the last year Egyptian revolution, broke the silence on a program called 60 Minutes, sharing the sexual violence that was afflicted on her as female in the field. In her own words, she stated that the Egyptian mob that assaulted her, quote, really enjoyed my pain and suffering. It incited them to more violence. For many Westerners, it is a vivid opening to the shocking treatment and continuous harassment of native as well as foreign women in Egypt. This practice persists due to Muslims' mentality that women are possessions of men and don't belong in public. To add salt to wound, Muslims blame the victim for supposedly falling short of Islamic restrictions on dress and behavior. Unfortunately, in her interview, Logan submitted to the persisting political correctness and was careful not to use the word Muslim or Islam with connection to the horrific sexual ordeal against her. Let me share with you only few personal stories that there are tales which only affirm Lara Logan's episodes and prove the dire situation of women in the Muslim world. My own niece was forced to marry her cousin when she was 11, and he was over 40. Her marriage was valid under Islamic Sharia because the Prophet Muhammad married his second wife, Aisha, when she was 6 years old and he was over 50. My niece, and for many years, was terribly abused and didn't have the right to ask for divorce. I always remember, as if it happened yesterday, when she would escape from her husband's house to her father's, begging him, "Dad, please let me stay here. I promise to be your maid to the rest of my life. He's very abusive. I cannot take this torture anymore." Her father would reply, "It is shame for a woman to leave her husband's home without his permission. Go back. I promise I will talk to him." At the age of 28, my niece committed suicide by setting herself on fire, leaving 4 children behind. While working as a physician in Syria, I have witnessed many crimes committed in my society under the justification of Islam. Once, when I worked in a small village, a woman in her late 30s came to my office complaining of nausea, vomiting, and back pain. An examination revealed that she was 3 months pregnant. As soon as I told her the news, she collapsed. She collapsed on the chair and began to scream, smacking her face. "I beg you, doctor. I beg you to rescue me from the mess I am in. My son will kill me. I don't care about my life. I deserve to die, but I don't want my son to dirty his hands with my blood." "What's wrong, Fatima?" "I am a widow. My husband died 5 years ago and left me with 4 children. My husband's brother rapes me every day in exchange for feeding my children. If he knew I was pregnant, he would provoke my son into killing me rather than be exposed to public disgrace." "How old is your son?" "He's 15, doctor." "I am begging you. He's still young, and I don't want him dirtying his hands with my filthy blood." I sent her to see a gynecologist. When she came back to see me about 2 weeks later, she looked undernourished, fatigued, and ill. "What is it, Fatima?" "I came to thank you. I got rid of the fetus, but I almost died. They performed the operation to remove the fetus without sedating me, and the pain I experienced nearly killed me." "He did it without an anesthetic? Why?" "I didn't have enough money to pay for the drugs to numb me, so the doctor had to operate without him." Tragically, These accounts I shared with you, by all means, are not isolated stories. They signify tragic stories of millions of other Muslim women all over the world, including here in Europe and in North America. On a daily basis, there are numerous domestic abuses of Muslim women, rapes, and honor killing. These stories, which are frequently ignored by Western women. In the worst case scenario, some here in the West prosecute those brave ones who dare speaking up and expose the gloomy reality of violence against Muslim women and the harsh reality of Sharia in general. They also forbid our culture from labeling the Islamic discrimination and persecution of women, obviously, as we are presently witnessing the consequences for those who dare are grave. Accordingly, let me challenge those who are on the wrong side of history. How can a Muslim woman raise a fair-minded child when she's oppressed herself? Certainly, a male child that grows watching his mother being disrespected and abused will almost surely have a distorted mind capable of cruelty, as was inflicted by the mob against Lara Logan. Is that not a dilemma which affects the West's relationship with the Muslim world? When a woman living under Islamic Sharia immigrates to a free Western country, it can become a complete transformative path, as happened to me. Now I am free. I don't have to allow my rights to be abused by any religious or political authority. In the United States, I am a person equal to all others. I, for one, don't take my rights for granted, and therefore, I will continue to fight to protect these rights, not only for myself, but for all other Muslim women. We, as citizens of the free world, must have the moral aptitude to expose and fight the totalitarian abuse of Islam against women. We must not stifle our language. We must use the appropriate vocabulary to call things by their rightful name. We must continue to urge for moral clarity, for open intellectual discourse with the precise definitions of our goal against their goal. The bitter situation of women under Islam should not be ignored. Real victory can take place only in the spirit of genuine inquiry, transparency, and the fearless pursuit of truth. It's as clear as daylight. A culture that doesn't respect half of its population will never thrive and prosper. When I was living in Syria, I cried often because I suffered. Now that I am free, I still cry for all other Muslim women who all over the world. I dream of a future when all Muslim women can savor a taste of my freedom. This is a dream that should be granted for all humanity. And our job is to be unrelenting in pursuing that objective. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I didn't want to walk around and pick up cards. I was stunned and too moved, and I didn't want to interrupt. I do have a card, though, and I'll come around to get them as she's answering. The first one is, how can America affect social change for Muslim women without military force? Are there already helpful organizations that we can lend aid to?
You know, I believe the internet is a very good tool to reach out. It's amazing. 15 years ago when we started to use the internet, I told my husband right away, it is the beginning of Islam collapse. Yeah, I truly believe it. Because for 1400 years we have been hostages, you know. Islam has built a wall around us in the Islamic world. For many generations, we didn't know what was going out of our prison. But now the internet made a big hole in that wall. And, you know, now everybody in the Islamic world aware of what's going on outside their prison. So you can use the internet to communicate and to reach out for the new generation in the Islamic world. It's very dire situation. It's beyond my ability to describe it. You wouldn't believe it. So you know, I want you to understand my situation. Believe me, when I hear American women complain, you know, it's very hard for me to understand why. You know, on my interview on Al Jazeera, the host asked me a question, why you're trying to be American more than Americans? I told him, you know what? I was born in hell. I moved to paradise. I know the difference between the two. But most Americans take it for granted. You know, they don't know how lucky they are to be here. So it's very hard for me to understand you talking about your rights in America. For me, I am free. I enjoy just walking early in the morning to Starbucks by myself without being called a whore is a blessing. That's freedom. I enjoy it. I enjoy every second of it. Just chatting with my next door neighbor without being accused of spending the night with him is a blessing. This is what I call freedom. But for you, it's very hard. Please understand my situation. It's hard for me to take it when I hear you complaining about your rights in the greatest country on earth. So enjoy it. Don't take it for granted. Fight for it. And I need you to reach out for the Muslim world. They need you. They need you. A slave, you know, the worst form of slavery is when the slave believes he or she free. And this is the situation with Muslim women. Unfortunately, they are indoctrinated to believe, you know, they are free. So we need to educate them. We need more schools in the Islamic world, more secular schools. We were brainwashed by Muhammad's life and the way he treated his wife. And the Quran insisted Muhammad has to be the role model for every Muslim man. And he has been. So we need to educate people. We need to open their eyes to the truth that they are missing a lot. They are abused at every aspect of their life. And I'm sure you can do it.
Okay, I have a whole stack of cards here.
Please don't be hard. I have enough hard shit.
This question is, what...
And you have more now.
What are your thoughts on the discussion that's arisen from Moda El-Tahawi's Why Do They Hate Us article? Are you familiar with that article?
No. Why they hate us?
Mona El-Tahawi? I don't know who gave...
Mona El-Tahawi?
Here.
It's not my question, but Mona Al-Tahawi is the Egyptian.
Yeah, I know her.
Yeah,
I do know her.
She wrote an article.
So she means why Muslims hate Americans? Oh, why they hate women? Because obviously Muhammad hates women, and he has been the role model for every Muslim man, and that's why they are indoctrinated to hate women. And that's justified by Allah, the Creator, so
okay,
that's why they hate us.
Sorry. Next question, and I'm just going through all of them, not wanting to be picky or anything. Why is the fact that you are a physician not mentioned in your conference bio? And I think we got that bio from you. So do you still identify as a physician? I mean, obviously.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
I am.
right.
Of course, and I am proud of it.
Yes, okay. Next question. What happens to open atheists in Islamic countries?
Oh, the same what will happen to gays and, to gay guys, They have to be killed.
Is Islam a threat to secular Europe?
No doubt about it. Of course it is. It is a big threat, yes. And I think, to be honest with you, it's too late for Europe to fight back and to restore their identity. A year ago, I was invited to speak in Paris. And to be honest with you, I felt like I was in Gaza Strip, not in Paris. 75% of my audience were covered. So I think it's too late. And I hope it's not going to get to this point here in the United States because of you.
In the Middle Ages, the Muslim countries were more advanced than the Christian countries. Spain, under the Umayyads from 732 to about 1040, was a pretty tolerant nation and was more advanced in human rights than the Christian nations. Now the Christian nations are more progressive in the area of human rights. What happened?
It is a big mess. It is a big mess, never been advanced. Islam took over our civilizations, the Coptic civilization, Assyrian civilization, too many civilizations, and they claim to be there. Never been. It is a big myth. They never been advanced. But they stole this civilization and claimed to be theirs.
I think we need another conference for that one. Please explain how you were able to become a medical doctor, but other girls are prohibited from attending school at all.
That's true, because it depends what area you come from the Middle East. Syria absolutely is totally different than Saudi Arabia. We have, to some point, I can call it secular government compared to the Saudi government. So we are more free in Syria than if you want to compare us with different parts of the Islamic world. So it depends, But wherever you are under Islamic Sharia. You are under the restriction of Islamic Sharia, and you cannot, even as I said before, my niece, wasn't able to ask for divorce. And that's why she had no choice but to kill herself and break herself free from this abuse. So wherever you are, you're under Islamic Sharia, but it is easier in some part than other parts.
Okay, next question. How widespread is Sharia law among Muslims in the United States?
How?
How widespread is Sharia law among Muslims in the United States?
I believe to very extent degree, yes. And don't forget, I truly believe Muslims in the United States are provided with Saudi money to spread Islam as much as they can. In 1991, I was very new in this country, and I was offered $1,500 per month to cover myself and attend Islamic school in California and teach little kids about Islam. At that point, I saw it as a red flag. But when you tell your American friends, look what Saudis are doing in your country, they said, well, it's America, they are free, they can do whatever they want. And they are infiltrating, the society, even the schools and the universities, with tons of millions of dollars. I have a friend whose son attended a middle school in San Diego, California. The teacher gave his student a project, extra point, to fast one day of Ramadan. My friend fought for 2 months with the school principal, and he couldn't do anything about it. So they are filtrating at every aspect in America, and this is America, and they're free to do whatever they want, unfortunately.
Okay, the next question. Because the US is divided by political hate, it seems the left has decided the right is racist when they speak out against Islam. So it's almost impossible to denounce Islamic gender apartheid without being told it is cultural differences and not Islam creating the abuse of women. How do we advocate for Islamic women in this close-minded tribal atmosphere?
Yeah, it has been so tough even for me. I've been accused a few times of being hateful, of having hateful messages. So it has been a tough, and I don't know how to fix this, how to bridge this gap between the two sides. I've been called racist, and even I'm speaking against my own religion, against my own culture.
How do you feel about laws in Europe that forbid burqas and hijabs for secular reasons? Do they help or hurt women?
Would you please repeat the...
How do you feel about laws in Europe that forbid burqas and hijabs for secular reasons?
Very good, excellent. I hope they will apply them in every country in Europe. And I hope it is not too late to apply them. I hope so.
Are there any resources that report on the untold stories so that we can bring more awareness to it here?
To be aware, as I said before, you have to be aware of the Islamic infiltration in the American society, in schools and universities, everywhere. You have to ask somehow your government to monitor the Saudi money that is used here in the United States. I heard now they are donating in millions to Catholic schools, believe it or not. So I don't think it can get uglier.
Do you know of any other resources where we can learn about all these things, or is that sort of what's missing other than having you talk everywhere?
I believe to get to the right source, you need to infiltrate the Muslim community. You need to go to mosques. You need to go to Islamic schools and pretend you're there just to hear their message and then find out what they are doing. It's as clear as daylight, and they're not hiding anything. So I believe it is easy for you, if not very easy, to get the right information from the real sources.
How do we deal with a society still in the Stone Age, but who have 21st century weapons? And should all Muslims be disrespected universally?
You have to ask who made these weapons and who gave these weapons to the Muslim world, and what's the agenda behind it. When you get the answer to those questions, I believe, million. Yeah. I don't know. Now you see what's going on in Syria. I have heard a story not a story, a joke in Syria. A man was asking for a direction. Please, can you tell me, I would like to get to blah, blah restaurant. He said, yeah, you go there. Not the first tank, not the second, the third tank, you make a right. So tanks all over Syria. And they're fighting and killing their own people. The question, who made these tanks? Who gave them these tanks? And what's the agenda behind it? They cannot make their underwear. So do you expect them to make tanks, to make weapons?
Okay, next question. Many people criticize attempts to correct problems of sexism in the United States and Europe by saying, how can you complain? Women in Muslim countries have it much worse than you. Especially after hearing your amazing talk, it's difficult not to have any sympathy with this view. No. I don't want to be petty, so I'm curious, how would you respond to criticisms like these?
No, you shouldn't take it. You should fight for your rights. You should fight, even don't take anything for granted. I didn't mean to discourage you from defending your rights, but I was trying to explain how terrible our situation is in the Muslim world. But you need to defend your rights.
Is there a liberal version of Islam of which you approve? Say, here in the United States, are all Muslim women in trouble?
Oh my God. Believe me, growing up in Syria, I have never heard terms like militant Islam, political Islam, Wahhabi Islam, liberal Islam. I truly believe the West invented those terms just for the sake of being politically correct. We have only one kind of Islam. Islam is Islam.
Next question. As a social worker, my primary specialization is abuse, particularly child sexual abuse and rape. And I know how very important it is for survivors to receive mental health treatment. Are Muslim women able or willing to receive support for their experiences? And are there organizations that are helping these women and children?
They are ready to accept this kind of treatment here in the West, but I believe in the Islamic world, it is very hard for someone to admit that he has mental problem or he needs mental support. In our culture, it's too bad to say I have some mental disorder or I need some mental support. But here in the West, I don't see why not. Why not? If they can find the right support, I believe they will take it.
Related to that, the next question, do you feel that most women are aware of the oppression against them? And if so, why do they vote for Muslim radicals such as the Muslim Brotherhood?
women aware of their... No, as I said before, they are indoctrinated to believe they are free and their abuse is allowed by Allah and blessed by Allah. So we need to educate them that they're not free and they are slaves to their own Islamic teachings.
Do you worry that people like you and Ayaan Hirsi Ali get used by the forces of the American right wing to stir up suspicion and hostility and to justify aggressive foreign policy and Israelis' crime against the Palestinians?
No, I don't think so. I have very clear message. If people abuse my message, it's not my problem. Very clear message that, but I cannot prevent others from abusing my message. My message is the problem is deeply rooted with Islam. We need to distinguish between Muslims and Islam. Islam is the belief system. I'm not against Muslims. They're my people. I am against Islam. I am against the belief system. So if someone here abused, as I said, my message, what can I do about it?
What do you think about the current fighting in Syria?
It's very sad. It's very sad to see my people are being killed. And by who? By their own government. But I still, to some point, I blame the West. I blame the United States of what's going in my own country. I truly, I blame him for, at the beginning, supporting the dictator. And now, by trying to take off the dictator and help the Islamists to take over, it is a big mess. If the dictator, goes, then the Islamist groups are the only group that are ready to take over, and we will go from bad situation to worse situation. We are in big mess in the Arab world. And to be honest, I feel that the United States is involved in creating this mess.
Well, I think you've inspired a lot of people in this room to be part of the solution. Thank you very much. We're all out of time, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.